We were talking about hypersexualization of black girls. We were talking about R. Kelly and him dealing with
Aaliyah.
Yeah, Aaliyah and these younger girls. And I had a man say to me, wait, whoa, I get what you're saying, but you got to understand at that age, what girl didn't want an older boyfriend?
That trope has been used against women for a long time. Jerry Lee Lewis married a 14-year-old. Elvis married a 15-year-old. But what I notice is this is especially exploited in black women because we're over-sexualized from jump. In fact, some of the songs coming out in the 60s, there's a song by the Rolling Stones. It's called Brown Sugar, but the original title of it was called Black. And it was made about a black woman who was like 17.
All right. Welcome back to Slap the Power.
Slap the power.
Slap the Power. The world may not need another podcast, but it could definitely use a
Slap the slap.
That's right. I am your host, Rick Barrio Dill.
And I am Maiya Sykes.
That's right. And on the show today, Rick finally unpacks his bag from the summer tour. We get into something that I am a learner. I am a student on, and I am so blessed that Maiya has brought this in. It's the adultification of black children. And then a little bit later, we do this segment that's gaining in popularity. It's called Tour Stories. That's right.
You have to do the creepy laugh or else it just doesn't land.
That's right. It is definitely the Count Chocula laugh, or it just isn't.
It's giving me the Count from Sesame Street. One tour story.
Two tour stories. That's right. So stick around for that. And Maiya, tell us about the adultification of black children.
Well, we split this up. We figured that this was a very, very large topic, and I brought it to Rick's attention and to our producer's attention because I read a study that was conducted in Georgetown, at Georgetown University, about the adultification of black children, specifically the adultification of black women, and the ramifications that it has throughout one person's adult life cycle. So this study showed that, on average, black children are policed more in schools. They are, for that reason, not given certain protections because they're policed more in schools. And specifically, black female children aren't given access to sex education at the same time as their white counterparts or their non-black counterparts. And because of that, you're seeing, on average, more presence of black female children in juvenile detention centers. That also stems to the belief that black women have a higher pain threshold. So currently, a black woman is 4 times less likely to get the same opiates as a white woman for the same issues. So what this study showed is that this bias basically colors the way a person's life will etch out and the ways in which they will seek medical attention, police attention if they are victimized in any way. And this is having damning effects. So this study, I think, was very comprehensive because it looked over subjects in different areas and specifically looked in the Georgetown area as a concentration. But there have been other subsequent studies that have looked in the Philadelphia area. There was one such study that looked in the Chicago area, and a lot of these statistics and reportings were the same. So I sat down with Casey Carnage, who hosts a show on this network called That's It, That's All.
Shout out to Casey Carnage.
Yes.
That's it. That's all, yeah.
And we sat down and we started talking about some of these biases and how we personally were affected by them because we both had instances in which we were over-sexualized early, which is one of the key components that this study shows, especially because black women are shown to develop physically early. And so because of that, they have the tendency to be 10 times more over-sexualized. So many Black women have encountered one over-sexualization or one sexual assault before the age of 15. So just highlighting some of these statistics that I don't think are readily available or readily known, rather more to the point, is something that as a Black woman, I'm passionate about, but I'm also looking at the next generation of Black females because they're taught to do things that other females are not taught to do. They're taught to be tougher. They're taught not to exhibit vulnerability or emotion because when they do, they're seen as weaker. Yeah. So there's certain things to this that I think have contributed to things like the angry Black female myth and different components that just make being a Black female tough. And in these areas, it showed that Black females had a harder time thriving. And I think it's due to some of these issues. So I wanted to shed a light and show specifically why this is, because I think that there are a lot of misconceptions behind this issue. Yeah.
And thank you for bringing this in. It's a fabulous piece, and I appreciate you bringing it to my attention because it's something that, I think if more people were aware of it, it would sort of help. It would help shine a light on just the systemic issues, especially with Black women, that just are baked in a way that have gone on, far too long, and hopefully can, everybody can be a little bit more aware and have some more empathy. And so, thank you for bringing the piece in. And I want to say, it is great to be back from tour. How long have you gone, just to throw a curveball into this serious story, but how long have you gone when you've been on a long tour and you've gotten it home and you've stared at your bag at the center of the floor and been like, I'm not unpacking?
I feel like this falls into two camps. You're either the person who unpacks immediately, and low-key, I think that person's kind of serial killer-esque. Not judging.
Yeah.
Not judging.
No.
I joke, but I have a couple of friends who will unpack immediately. Like the minute they get home, they're unpacking everything and like thoroughly cleaning it and putting it away. And I wish I could be like one of these people because I pack like a serial killer. So I should unpack like one.
Right.
And yet I do not. Yeah. Sometimes I just went on a weekend trip and my bag's still in the middle of the floor, mainly because I have to pack for another thing. And I'm like, well, since it's already out,
why?
I might as well
just keep it.
No, but I try to give myself deadlines to unpack because it could just sit there.
Yeah.
Especially if there's dirty clothes in there. Sometimes I just wait till laundry day to unpack.
That's the other thing.
It's just dirty anyways.
It's right. And I finally did. How
long did it take you?
It's a couple of weeks. Like for me, I was picking at it for a while, and we were gone for 2 months though. That was a long tour. Yeah. The
longer the tour, the longer it stays in the middle of your floor. Yeah. Because people don't realize when you go on tour, especially if it's a lengthy tour, you are out for 2 months. You don't have an ounce of anything in your body. You don't have a mineral, a vitamin. You don't have an ounce of blood. You have nothing. Yeah. So you are literally just coming home and being like, I need sleep, lots of it, and then I need nutrients. Like nobody's thinking about unpacking. Like I'm thinking about revitalizing my spirit. Exactly. Like no.
I'm serious. Yeah, you got to take care of your spirit because that'll get wiped out. So I am very happy to be back. Happy to be here with you, and again, super glad that to be sort of enlightening this topic. And so when we come back from the break, you're going to hear Maiya's interview with Casey Carnage on the adultification of Black children.
Yo, what's up? It's your girl, Maiya Sykes, and I am here with Slap the Power. Now, the world may not need another podcast, but it definitely needs a slap in its face. And to help me with that slap in its face, I have the beautiful, the effervescent, the quintessentially lovely Miss Casey Carnage. And you may know Casey because Casey hosts a wonderful podcast of her own called That's It, That's All.
Thank you, Maiya, and thank you, Slap the Power, for having me. I love when people give you great introductions. Like, If you can see me now, I'm blushing through this brown skin.
Let's get into this episode. This episode is a lot to unpack. So we decided to cross 2 podcasts in one. So you're getting a little bit of That's It, That's All. You're getting a little bit of Slap the Power. And I hope we get some of your reactions. So what we're talking about is the adultification bias that people of color, specifically women of color, for our end, face. So let's get into it. One of the reasons why this is near and dear to my heart is obviously I'm a Black woman, and obviously I feel like I have dealt with adultification my entire life. And there was a part of me that felt as if I was making this up. I was made to feel as if I was exaggerating these experiences, saying that there were microaggressions. It almost felt like I was being gaslit in a specific way, right? And it wasn't until some later years in my life, I started seeing studies on something called adultification. And I was like, what is that? And I kind of wanted to go down the rabbit hole. So for me, because I come from an academic background, as some of you may know, I'm always interested in studies. I feel like data can't lie. Like you can make any kind of claim about anything you want to, but when we get down to the nuts and bolts of what the statistics say, that doesn't lie.
Research.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because, and also Black women are about receipts. So to me...
Okay, I like a receipt, okay? You can't tell me nothing without a receipt.
Listen, okay? Because we collect them. We collect them to present at events.
I'm screenshotting them all. I'm screenshotting them all because I feel like, especially when you need a receipt for somebody you're going to need a receipt for, like, it's like automatic, like, yeah, this conversation is going, or this is going. Let me screenshot because I feel like I'm going to need this receipt for.
One of the things that really sparked my interest about adultification bias was a study that came out by Georgetown Law Center on poverty and inequity in 2020. And their study showed that Black American female children between the ages of 5 to 14 were seen as not only older, but much older than both their non-white and white peers. And because of this bias, Black female children were seen as in need of less nurturing, less protection, less support, less comfort, and they were rarely listened to when they did present moments of distress and moments of sadness or moments of anger. So this fascinated me.
Yeah, and the study also showed that Black female children were seen more independent, more knowledgeable about adult topics, more specifically about sexual experience, and therefore they needed less sexual education. In a similar study led by Professor Philip Goff in 2014, Black female children were likely perceived as older than their white peers starting at the age of 10.
And 10 is ridiculous. Like, think about yourself at 10. Like, at 10, I still played with Barbies. I didn't know anything. So the fact that I was supposed to be a whole ass adult.
I mean, but it's funny that they say that because I remember in school, like, we start filling out, right? And, with the exception, no offense, but like white girls are now getting booties, right? But then they didn't have them.
Right.
But Black women were, filling out a little bit more. And I remember being in school and like if we had a tank top and our chests were bigger, we had to put on a shirt. But like a little white girl would come in and they would have a crop top, stomach out, the shortest of shorts because they didn't have the same body type as we did.
Exactly.
So like that study definitely made sense. And like it was like this is like when we brought up this topic, I actually had to do a little research myself because I was like, what do you mean by this? What's going on? But it brought back a lot of instances. Like you read something, you're like, whoa, that did happen.
Yes.
I didn't even know that's what was going on.
I don't know if you had the same experience as I did. I felt like, wait, one of these things is not like the other. And I would say something, and every time I would say something, I've always been the rabble rouser. Like, I just can't help it. I guess that's just how I was raised, and it is what it is. But every time I would say something to a teacher or something, I was always dismissed. I was always made to feel like, oh, well, that's just, you're... Maybe, but it's not the way you think. I always got it's not the way you think.
We were talking about hypersexualization of Black girls. We were talking about R. Kelly and him dealing with
Aaliyah.
Yeah, Aaliyah and these younger girls. Oh my God. And I hate to say it was a Black man. I had a man say to me, wait, whoa, I get what you're saying, but you got to understand at that age, what girl didn't want an older boyfriend?
But that trope has been used against women since that trope has been used against women for a long time. Like Jerry Lee Lewis married a 14-year-old, Elvis married a 15-year-old. This isn't old. But what I notice is this is especially exploited in Black women because we're over-sexualized from jump. In fact, some of the songs coming out in the 60s by David Bowie, by Aerosmith, by the Rolling Stones. There's a song by the Rolling Stones. It's called Brown Sugar, but the original title of it was called Black Pussy. And it was made about a Black woman who was like 17. Okay, in the education system, for example, this bias of Black children just automatically knowing how to be adults has had a really damning effect. So this Georgetown study shows that Black female children are less likely to receive leadership opportunities in school, leading to less scholarship and less scholastic opportunities on a national level, which I find really important given that affirmative action was effectively ended.
Right. But did you see the study that they did for Harvard? They're going after the legacy.
But they should have gone after the legacy. And the part that has me shooketh, right, is that if you look at the group that's helped by affirmative action the most, it's white women. And yet white women are its strongest opponents, right? So there's this bias that if you are a woman of color and you received higher education of any kind, you got it through affirmative action. I even experienced that even though I didn't get in because of affirmative action. In fact, I didn't check my ethnicity when I applied to Yale. And I got in as a National Merit Scholar. I had 17 scholarships. But the entire time I was there, it was always assumed that I got in because of affirmative action. And I was treated as such. But then I saw the students of color that did get in because of affirmative action. And affirmative action just helped them get to this higher plane that they succeeded in by leaps and bounds. The only reason why they might not have initially gotten into those schools was because they hadn't been taught by their high school how to take a white standardized test.
Oh, absolutely.
My mother sent me to a school that was $30,000 a year because one of the foremost things they taught me was how to take standardized tests. It's one of the reasons why I did well in school.
And it's the crazy part about it because, they always talk about how standardized testing is definitely on a scale, right? And I feel like even growing up in school, I ended up so I hated standardized testing. I was very smart in school. I hated standardized testing to the point where it was so tedious that I would just fill in the bubbles. I mean, I got into a great school, whatever. I would fill in the bubbles. And, we would have these bad tests and they put you in these classes, right?
Right.
But for me, I feel like
the psychology behind it
is that I felt like as parents or as, higher educators who are with children, I feel like there was never a gap on okay, what is the valuation? Why aren't you testing like this or why? And I could tell you, I was bored. Them tests, it doesn't apply to real life really. Yeah, maybe the math section, but you get to language and you're talking about these stories that don't quite match up to
what
I know and so I don't know, they've talked about it being unbalanced. They always talk about
completely unbalanced. And I'm going to tell you right now, I went to a school and my mother got me an ancillary tutor. Okay. Now I went to a school that was $30,000 annually. I had a partial scholarship. So my mom voluntarily took the bus for 6 years so that I could go and she could spend the rest of her money for me to go to the school. And shout out to Crossroads because they helped me a lot. What's up, Crossroads? Row runners in the house. Anyway, but one of the things that they did that gave us a huge leg up was they made us learn Latin from 7th, 8th, and part of your 9th grade year. What that did was it taught me the root words of most of the big words that you see on the SATs. So even with those root words, right, and knowing what those stems were, if there was a word that looked crazy, and I didn't know what it meant, but I could pick out a VER or a VIR or an LIR or this, and I knew what the root of that meant, that I could take an educated guess. And that's the thing that we're not giving students of color that go to public schools. We're not giving those things. Those things are specifically given to people who can afford to go to the $30,000 a year private schools. So your standardized testing already goes to do you speak standard? There's there's an author that I loved who unfortunately committed suicide named David Foster Wallace. And he wrote this essay. He used to write for Parade magazine. And he wrote this really, really huge book called Infinite Jest, which was pretty much his masterpiece. But I think that a lot of his greatest work was in the essays that he wrote. And he wrote an essay about being an English teacher in inner city schools. And he said, I, as a white professor, as a white English teacher in these schools, had to tell these black children, listen, I need you to learn how to speak what I'm going to call standard white English, because on these statistic tests, on these scholastic tests that are going to determine your future, if you don't know how to speak standard white English, you're going to fail. And I hate that I'm the one that has to tell you this. That was so powerful for me to read. I remember reading that essay. I want to say it came out in the late 90s in Parade, because he wrote for Parade for a while. And for all of you out there, please look up David Foster Wallace. He was a genius. And seeing that this person decided that his most effective tool for teaching these inner city kids was telling them the truth.
Well, it's funny because I grew up in a very suburban city in New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey. And so our public school, our public schools is pretty much private schools. And so, I mean, we had everything. We had literally every resource. But at the same time, like you said, the standardized testing, the curriculum, it wasn't geared to a universal basis. It was what he was saying in his essay. So when it came down to the testing, the scores showed, you know what I mean? Like, you have things that we are not being tested, or a lot of kids were getting pushed by just to get them out of the school because, we had the resources. The school was prestigious, but our school was based on our wins in sports.
Right.
You know what I mean? Our numbers. Like, Montclair was very big about numbers. So teachers would pass these children to keep it at a higher esteem. And that really wasn't necessarily helping us. It was giving us tools that we needed there and to say, but it was more like, to me, now that I look back on it, it was more about the picture.
Right.
Opposed to the actual
Exactly.
child and the differences in child. Because we were a very diverse community. So there was no reason for our curriculum not to be as diverse as the community was.
Exactly.
But when you think about standardized testing, we're talking about the state, right? We're not talking about the city. We're talking about the state. And other parts of New Jersey, either it was very affluent or it was very poor.
There's no middle.
There was no middle.
I feel like the eradication of the middle class in America started in New Jersey, quite frankly. And I feel like it started in New Jersey and Detroit, respectively, because those communities had burgeoning, thriving communities. And all of a sudden, when you had white flight, and then when all of the manufacturing left, it became the haves and the have-nots. Statistics don't lie. Black people are owning homes at a rate of 35% against white people, 64%. And Latino families, I want to say 44%. I'll look up those numbers, but I think I'm in the right ballpark. In fact, I'm pretty sure because I just looked this up yesterday. But I feel like this adultification bias is super important to talk about because I've seen a rash of shootings at black children and they're adultifying.
This bias is also claiming lies. I mean, the killing of Tamar Rice, Trayvon Martin, and even the recent shooting of 16-year-old Ralph Yarl shows that the black male children are most likely to be viewed as threats rather than children.
Right, and that child was trying to pick up his little brother.
And you got this old man sitting at the door talking about whatever. Oh, it's not guilty. I'm just like, how does that make sense? If this little Girl Scout, little Sally, would have walked up to your door, would you shot her?
Exactly.
Or little Bobby walked up to your door, would you shot him?
And when you look at Ralph Yarl, he
looks like a child.
Exactly.
He looks like a child, and
he
the
looks
fact
like
that this
he
child,
looks younger than 16.
Right, and this child, you felt like this child was so much a threat. And this man, we looked at the thing. He was 5'9".
Yeah,
he wasn't even tall.
5'8".
Yes, around 5'8". So 5'8", 5'9".
And what's his
Skinny?
name? And what's his name's assailant said, "Oh, well, I just saw this menacing black figure at my door." And I'm like, "You saw what?" I mean, maybe the man, because he's older, like maybe he had cataracts or something. Like, I don't know what his vision was about. But I feel
in 2023, a little black boy shows up at your door, and you decide to pull out a gun and decides to pull out a gun and shoot him.
Because it's not like he was like, "Give me all your," like I could see if he spoke in a menacing tone in the dark.
But
But he
even
was
still-
like, "Hi there, I'm here to pick up." Like for real, you heard, "Hi there, I'm here to pick up my brother." Clack clack. For real.
Like for real.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. This is heavy for a lot of reasons. Like, okay, Ralph Yarl's assailant. His grandson went on record as saying, yeah, my grandfather's really racist. So for that man who has a history of racist incidents to be able to use the defense of, oh, I just saw a menacing black figure, and it be taken at gospel until many people had to disprove it. Like, how come it was taken at gospel? Like, why did it take so many people to have to disprove this? And it was easily disproven. And that's the part for me, is why is it that in order to, this is why black women collect receipts, now that I think about it, because we're always having to defend actions.
Oh, I'm going to send a white lady email.
All day.
I'm going to send a white lady email. Because let me tell you something. You can talk. And I always say this too, also too. If anything also happens, you guys do know that there are phone records that you can retrieve.
Facts.
There are phone records you can retrieve, get you a nice private eye, call the police station, whatever you need to do. All that stuff is in the cloud.
Yo, and I remember when that was on Law and Order, they used to call it the LUDs, and I was like, get the LUDs.
Get the LUDs. Get the LUDs.
damn it.
Because here's the thing. You never know how people are going to take things. And when it comes down to the adultification of, our black community, of our children, even talking about, segueing to like hypersexualization, right? We were talking about how, black girls, they fill out a little faster than white women. Like,
and we're hypersexualized in the media.
In the media. It's like whether we're projected in the movies, what are we doing? We're either the hoe, we're either the madam,
we're the temptress,
the mistress.
Right.
The mistress. I mean,
the provocateur.
what was it like? Don't get me wrong. Like, Scandal was my shit. Don't get me wrong.
All day.
Shout out to Kerry Washington. Shout out to all of them. But what was it about? It was about this
A
power
woman
of
of power
being deemed down and knocked down a notch to be a mistress to the president. Like, how are we in a world where, okay, we're going to give you a lead role to be this woman that's going to take care of shit, but we're also going to be like,
part of the reason why she had her power. So part of the reason why she had her power was because she subjugated herself to be side chick. And I looked at, I had this conversation with a friend of mine about online dating. And my friend was like, you really need to get on online dating. And I said, a few years ago, just as a social experiment, I made dummy profiles on all of the popular sites. I made 3 dummy profiles. And in one of them, I said who I was. I'm a very curvy black lady. On the other 2, I said on one, I was Latina. One, I was white. And so I made 3, rather. One, I was Latina. One, I was white. And one, I was Asian. And on the one that I was Asian and on the one that I was Latina, I put my actual dimensions. But on the one that I was white, I kept it pretty generic and just kept myself middle of the road.
okay.
And I got more hits on the Latina version of me and the Asian version of me than the real version of me. And the white version of me eclipsed all those.
Wow.
By and keep in mind, on those 4 profiles, I didn't have a photo. So these were just people who were willing to accept that I'm a 5'5". I put that I was 5'5", 189 pounds on one. Another one I put I was 5'5", 212 pounds. Another one I put I was 5'5", 195 pounds. And then I put my real weight. I'm happy I came down a bit. So right now I'm 5'5" and I'm 193 pounds, right? And I did this 3 years ago. So what I found is interesting is that the actual dimensions of me and the actual representation of me got 40% less traction than a made-up version of me if I was white, Latina, or Asian. So if you're in a country in which you, as a woman, the class you're in is already relegated to the bottom of the barrel, and you're already seen as an option but not a choice, but you're over-sexualized starting in preschool, what are you supposed to do? Because I'm always hearing this narrative of you need to be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get into things because of your own merit. And I did that. And I was still treated as if I didn't.
So let's talk about that. You just made a point about how they're supposed to tell us, suck it up, buck it up, pull you up on your bootstraps. But then at the same time, when we try to do that, what did they label us as? The angry black woman.
The angry black woman. And it's becoming a thing where statistics aren't lying. Black women are 4 times less likely to receive opiate medication for pain than any other woman group. Asian, Latina, white, Persian, doesn't freaking matter. Black women are getting less neonatal care. They're getting, by huge statistics. This doesn't stop if you're famous or wealthy. Wanda Sykes, in one of her specials, it's a special called Not Normal, and she talked about what the state of the country was, and she talked about having a double mastectomy. As a famous person, a white woman next to her was given opioids and Percocet for her double mastectomy. You know what they gave Wanda Sykes? Ibuprofen. And she talked about that, and I'm so grateful that somebody decided I'm going to use my platform to talk about this, because when I've been talking about this, I'm perceived as somebody who's complaining, whining, over-exaggerating things, picking out microaggressions and making them macroaggressions. I've heard that a bunch. But then when I'm going down to these statistics, I'm looking at, the racial bias in prescription opioids, according to the New England Journal of Medicine in 2021, showed that white patients received 36% more pain medications by dosage, even if a white person and a black person were prescribed the same opiate. I'm like, okay, I'm saying this, and doesn't this alarm anybody? And the fact that it doesn't, and I'm out here by myself on an island being like, hey, what about black women? I'm tired of that. So we're just supposed to come out the womb and know how to take care of ourselves, know sexuality, know how to be the most unvulnerable. And we're given this trope of we're supposed to be not vulnerable and hard from birth, but then you want to label us the angry black women. I'm like, you made us that.
You made us that and then gave us a label. But, it goes back to we're talking about the adultification of children, right? I actually looked it up on Wikipedia, and they were talking about how even back in slavery that they were giving adult jobs to children.
Starting at age 10.
Started at age 10, adult jobs to children. And so when you're giving these jobs to children, that is, like systematic oppression, right? Systematic anything. This is what you teach your child this, you teach your child this, even going into now modern day children, the whole idea of, when you're 18, because they classify you as an adult legally, that doesn't mean you're an adult.
And if nobody's showing you how to be an adult because there's already a bias that you are one out the gate. How are you supposed to learn how to be an adult?
And then on top of that, our school system aren't even teaching us how to be an adult. Like, they're not teaching us, taxes.
Balance
they're
your
not
check.
Back in your check. What's going to happen when you go and you remember that study about a lady went to appraise her house, or she went to sell her house. It was a black couple.
Yes.
They went to go sell their house, and they gave a low rate on what they would, appraisal value.
That happened
they
about
had
6
their
years
friend
ago.
As a white person go and do the same thing, and they gave them almost double the appraisal.
Wait a minute. I remember that was actually because that family, they came on HGTV. I remember exactly what you're talking about. And it was deeper than that because they gave them this lowball estimate. Their friend suggested that they do a $600 paint remodel, right? So they repainted the house for about $600. Then had the white friend go who repainted the house for them go do the appraisal, and it was almost double. And they were like, wait a minute. And I look at that even to this day because getting credit ratings for families of color, especially ones that present as African American, is harder by like 50%.
Well, also, too, even the census, right? Why everything that you have to sign up for, why do I have to let you know what I am? Like, if it really doesn't matter, if we're all created equal, if we're doing all this, why do I have to check a box and tell you who I am? That to me is already giving some type of bias. I always say prefer not to say. I don't tell them my sex, and I don't tell them what race I am, because there's no reason why this should matter.
Because
now,
I already know I'm going to get
Right.
it on either side. So I'm like, I don't want to give you the ammunition to shoot me.
Because that's really what it is. It's a creditor to look at us and say, okay, this is a black person, this is a white person, this is an Asian person. Okay, cool. They're like, I feel like they're in the Matrix and they're like putting everything up
Yes.
on the wall and they're just moving stuff
And we're just,
around.
like, moving, and you're trying to be like,
I think you were saying earlier about being taught the whiter words or whatever to be able to, succeed a little, further, right? And you think about how, like, we talk about all the time how, like, there are certain black men, certain black women that have to play chameleon. Like, we're deemed as, oh, you're not like that.
I was always told that.
Me too.
And it used to make me confused. And I know that I don't have a good poker face when I'm confused. So
Me neither, girl.
my face just looks like a big question mark.
The
so
Riddler.
They would say things like, you're such a credit to your race. And my face would automatically be like, the fuck?
Or they'll say something weird and you'll be like, well, you know what I mean? You're not a part of that.
But
I'm
you
like,
can
what?
get it in these codes. I hate to put Yale under the bus like that. But I got that the most when I was at Yale, because I would go to functions and I'd sing or something, and somebody would come up to me who got in on academic merit. I didn't get in because of music scholarships or whatever. I got in academically. And they'd come up to me and say things like, the Negro does nothing better than sing and dance. And I'd have to, because I'm one of 6 black people in the entire room of maybe 200 folk. I have no allyship, right? I have no safety net. So first, my face looks like a question mark. And then I have to figure out how to take that question mark off my face in fear that I'm going to be offensive and that I have no place to run.
Right.
But how can I say how angry and how sad that makes me without appearing like I'm the angry black female trope that was created long before I even existed? The other thing that I notice is that my white peers many times take my words that express displeasure about an event, a thing, something I don't like, as anger. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I didn't shout at you. I didn't call you. To me, anger has like I'm so mad. And maybe anger has different faces for different things. I acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. But the few times I feel like I've been angry, I feel like I came in like, what? I got all the angry facts. You know what I'm saying? And when I come in the room being like, I don't like this, I'm still perceived as me being, the anger emoji from, what was that movie? Inside Out.
Inside Out. And you talk about we talk about the angry black woman, but we also talk about the strong black woman, right?
The beast of burden black woman.
Right. But the adultification, it gives you that aspect of like, you have to be strong, because here's the thing. When things happen to generations and generations and generations, they get passed down through generations, and you have to choose to be able to break these cycles, right? And there's some of us that make it out of our family. We think about like who you are in your family, correct? You think about what you have done to maybe break these cycles, and there's some people who continue the cycles. That's what we have been instilled in us, that this is the way it has to be. Some people are content. Some people are not going to ask the questions, and they're just going to go with what has been the norm. And like, even so, I think about like mental health, right? How have we been dealing with our mental health? Is why in our community it doesn't get talked about a lot. Like, if you think about, like, if I was to ask my grandfather, rest in peace, if I was like, yeah, you want to go to a psychologist? I ain't going to no psychologist, like, whatever.
That's white shit.
That's some white shit. But it's also not even necessarily white shit. It's just, it is, but it's also one of those things where people haven't taught us that it's okay to take care of our mind,
because we still conflate medical shit with white shit, and because we conflate medical shit with white shit, we don't think we have access, and so then we create mythology to say we don't need access.
Right, we don't need access, and then our coping mechanism is what? We're not going,
or we need Oprah and Jesus, and that's gonna make it okay.
Oprah and Jesus, and then also being suppressive. Like, the rate of black girls are at a higher for, you know,
It's been higher.
It's the highest because we get burdened, because not only are we taking care of the world most of the time, we're also taking care of our men. You know what I mean? Because they lock up our men. They
adultify our men.
Adultify our men, lock up our men. They adultify our children. It's a system that has been created for the Black family that has literally almost pretty much is destined for us to fail at it. The Black family is very.
You know what's so interesting is that we keep succeeding on that ass. And
oh my God, the resilience.
But it's like the resilience, like that we keep, and as Black people, we keep pushing this narrative. You have to be resilient, and I'm like, what does this mean? What is and what does resilience mean in this day and age? Because, okay, I'm just looking. Again, I hate to keep saying this in this episode, but you're going to hear me say this a lot. Statistics don't lie. Black men between the ages of 18 and 35, their suicide rate has almost doubled in less than 5 years. Mm-hmm. Something is happening and something is wrong. Something is wrong.
Something's absolutely wrong.
I'm seeing men I know not make it to 35, not make it to 40.
Because people are not talking about health, like mental health. Mental health is one of the biggest issues that is a non-factor or talked about a non-factor in our communities. Like, it's
and one we don't have medical support for.
Medical support. Oh my God. We don't have medical support for. And if you think about it, as a people, we have been so oppressed. We have literally an obstacle every decade that we have to go through. And it's just like, as a people, if I honestly feel like as a people, if we didn't get together and, you know, rally around each other the way that we did and move the way that we did, they would eradicate us. You know what I mean? They would.
And even when you ask for help, like there's a really, I consider I call her my sister. And I'm not going to say her name because I just want to have her anonymity if she needs it for this specific issue. Uh-huh. After the birth of her 5th child, she was in a marriage that wasn't supporting her. She was in a dead-end job. She was depressed and she was experiencing postpartum. So she went to her OBGYN and she went to her local hospital and she said, hey, I'm having a tough time. I'm feeling these feelings. I'm feeling feelings of depression, of chaos that I don't know how to mitigate. I've looked up that this may be postpartum. I'm not sure how to support this. I'm not sure what to do. And rather than saying, okay, here is access to maybe some medication that might help you or some support groups that might help you, they committed her. I had to go get her. But they committed her. They 5150'd her because she said, I'm a Black woman having a hard time with 5 children. And at the time, her oldest child was like 14 and her youngest child had just been born. So she had a huge gap. She's doing the best she can. And it's not as if she's presenting as a single Black woman. She was presenting as a Black woman with a college education, married, and they still committed her.
It's crazy because I had a friend that was just talking about this the other day. She has Crohn's disease, and I guess she was having a flare up or something. She went to the doctor. She went to the ER, and she was crying, and she was like, "Something is wrong with me. Like, I literally can't breathe. There's a flare up." And they kept saying, "Oh, you're gonna be fine. Just sit over there. You're fine." They finally, after hours, got her into the room to see somebody. And she's like, "Are you gonna give me like some type of steroid? Are you gonna give me some type of medication to like ease the pain?" They wouldn't give it to her. And the medicine they finally gave to her, they wouldn't tell her what it was. I think they put it in her IV and it gave her an allergic reaction. Didn't go through what was going on, didn't go through her charts or anything like that, and gave it. She's like, I actually think I have a lawsuit on my hands because the medicine that they gave me that I didn't ask for, nor did anybody talk to me about it. A nurse came and just administered it to me
without checking my medical history
without checking her medical history at all. She was like, she showed me the pictures. Her lip was flared up, her eye was flared up. I said, you didn't talk to anybody, and she was like, the funny thing is that unfortunately there was administrators, the nurses and stuff like that were women of color, and she felt like they weren't on her side. She felt like, you're not my boss, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm going to side with the doctors that are, and you know what I mean, like the people that are paying me. So she was like, I felt really misplaced as a Black woman in that hospital and
Because you have no allies.
You have no allies.
But that's what I mean. Like, I remember that one Yale experience I had where somebody was like, the Negro does nothing better than sing and dance. And I looked around the room, and what I saw were Black people that were going to side with the white person saying the Negro does nothing better than sing and dance because that they decided that was their protection.
And their coping,
and their coping mechanism. Ooh. And so they'd rather throw me under a bus and let me die than...
Well, go back. Let's go back. We have the house Negroes and we have the field Negroes. So even if we think about just that dynamic, even if it's not that, right, and the trope of that dynamic about the separation that they have put us through since we arrived here in America, has still been passed down. Like, you know what I mean? It's still been passed down, that same mentality of there are some, Black people that are going to side with others.
Yes.
Because I'm comfortable. They like me. I'm good.
Right.
I'm not like that. And the crazy part about it, they don't even understand that that is a part of a mental thing, that the fact that they have ingrained that in us so much so that you feel like at any given point, if they had to choose between them and you, that you think they're going to choose you too. They're not.
Ever.
And
because I've known that but I've been in so many scenarios in which I clocked this early. And I was the one person of color that said, hey, yo, they ain't checking for us. And maybe we should examine some things because they ain't checking for us. And they should. We're making them a lot of money. And in at least half of those scenarios, I was vilified.
I mean, we've always made the money. I mean, we picking cotton.
But again, when I was the person who brought that up, half of the people of color kind of not vilified me, but they were like, oh, well, that's your problem. I was like, well, that's kind of your problem too.
But it's also like, what's sad about it, that's not even their fault.
I know, and I couldn't even be mad at them.
And that is the saddest part about it, is that
I have to be cool with those people because I know that.
Right. The ideology around it, it's not even their fault.
The slave mentality.
It's not even their fault.
It goes back to Sally Hemings, Jesus.
I would say in this situation, especially when it comes to our children, in order to break this cycle, we have to really be able to talk about the issue. We have to identify it, and it has to be admitted that it's happening. But I will say this. I know that, we're coming towards the end of this. I want to say this because on my show, I like to leave messages. And I would say any ally that's out there, do the work. Don't just assume because you have a Black friend you understand. Actually do the work, because it takes all of us. It really takes all of us, because we're here in America together. We're here in this nation together. We're here in the world together. And if you're choosing to say, I am going to stand with you, I'm going to be with you, do the work.
And also understand that the allies that are asking you to do the work are not asking for an advantage over you. They are asking for the same handshake that you have access to.
And
that's what matters. So I just wanted to point out that we are going to do this as a 3-part exercise and a 3-part episode, because I feel like exercise and episode need to come together. The exercise is breaking down the stereotypes and tropes that you think are associated with adultification bias. And I wanted to start with the two of us. And I really appreciate what you're adding here, because as somebody who's known you for a while, I feel like you have a vocal point of view that needs to be showcased for how cogent it is, but how also relatable it is. That's really important.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that. And I thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. As a sister podcast to our network.
Thank you so much. And remember, slap the power, y'all.
Slap the power.
Hey.
All right. Before we go, that was incredible, Maiya. Thank you again for bringing this to light. And I appreciate, and shout out to Casey again.
Well, thank you for being open to allowing this topic to happen. I know that as not a Black woman, it could be really intimidating to go, oh my God, I don't know anything about this and it's scary. But I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to have these conversations is because sometimes when I say things that happen to me as a Black woman, people don't believe me.
Sure.
And I think that if you know that this happens to a lot of Black women, then you'll think about it differently. But we can't have that conversation if you're too scared to have it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being unafraid and willing to let the topic just be and let the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah, and I say this a lot. If it weren't for Black women, I actually think right now the Republic would be lost. And I know that is a bold statement, but we owe. There's just nobody has carried more weight in this country ever than the Black female. And I feel like I feel. I hate using the word fortunate, but I do feel. I love what we're putting together in that respect on trying to lift things like this up because, and thank you for saying that. It is vital that we bring a lot of these issues to light and lift them up. And I was like, well, what is somebody like me? I don't have anything on this episode but to learn. And so I appreciate you doing that. But you brought it to my attention too. Yeah, no, I do have something to bring, and that is the perspective of somebody who did not know about this, right? And just how real these statistics are, how true this is, and to try and, if we can in any way, shoot up some more empathy and some more understanding and some more trying to make this a more equal situation. So
facts.
Yeah. So, and we're going to, do what we normally do. We got our chocolate cake and your kale all at the same time. We're going to do a segment called Tour Stories. That's right. And what do you got today? You got a tour story today?
Yeah, again, there's going to be a reoccurring theme here, and that is that I work for a lot of people who make you sign some hefty NDAs. So we're going to
take
that
with you.
So in this particular tour story, I inadvertently had to flee for my life while I was in Egypt. So we were performing for a Russian billionaire. And as you do, because there's a lot of that. You'd be surprised. We were unaware that at the time the student rebellion was about to happen.
Oh.
So we were supposed to be there an extra 3 days. And at the last minute, our tour manager just happened to be in the hotel bar. And he saw cameramen from C-SPAN and CNN. And he was like, what's going on? He was like, and they said, you didn't know? The students are about to rebel. Like, it's all on the blah, 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 blah. And he was like, no, I had no idea. So he inadvertently wired to the tour manager, to the tour managing group, and got them to give him some money. And he put notices under all of our doors saying change of plan, because we were supposed to stay in Egypt an extra 3 days, and we had these baller rooms and a guide that was going to take us to all the baller stuff. Like
camel.
I was retty, like I was ret, honey. I had outfit choices, like she was here for it.
Okay, see me at the Sphinx later.
Listen, I was here for it.
Yep.
And he put this thing under our door saying change of plan. We have to leave at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So we're all complaining, being like, what that mean? He was like, it's a change of plan. He was so gangster. He used to be in the military, so he definitely had that tone where you were just like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we get up. Of course, the artist that I'm with was an hour late, so we didn't leave till like 8:30. But we get into these like military transport vehicles, and we ride for quite some time. And then we rode to like basically what was, I think, a military base, and we flew on these like planes where wasn't no amenity, wasn't no peanuts, wasn't no like
chickens
TVs in the
running up and down
headrest, so you could pick a crappy movie to watch. Like it was like, okay, at 100 hours we're gonna jump out this plane type, John. So we had to put these seatbelts on. I have never been more terrified in my life, and I was like, what do these white people have me going to? So finally we got to Morocco, and then we just finished out the tour from there. But we didn't know that we were fleeing this until we got to Morocco.
Oh shit.
And then we found out that there was this whole like student uprising and all this other stuff. So yeah, we missed that by like a day and some change.
Oh my God. Wow. That is a horror story for sure. Mine, I'm going to keep in the Russian billionaire theme because
because it's a theme.
It is a theme. So not too long ago, we got to play in Moscow. We were basically playing a Russian oligarch's 60th birthday party, and as the Russian oligarchs tend to do, they have a lot of their security detail, their FSB guys, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so all these guys are FSB. It's full on thing like they gave us instructions ahead of time. Don't look at his wife or the table with the women on the other side, which I can only presume was his girlfriend's, right? And it was like, don't look, don't hit him on or nothing. And so we're like, okay, that's cool, that's fine.
But how do you not? Okay, how do you do a
how do you
show
and
you're
not-
like, I'm just like, I'm singing this like, powerful ballad. I'm just gonna not look at y'all.
Not look at the super super hot lady that's like right in front of you, right? But we did it. Ty killed it. Everything. We get back to the lobby where we're taking kind of pictures afterwards, and our keyboard player Brian London, shout out Brian London. He just one of the most beautiful human beings on planet Earth. I think he got up. It was done with the gig. He went upstairs. He was never wearing a shirt. You would never see Brian with a shirt. So he's down there, and we're taking. And it was like, hey, let's get some pictures. We get some pictures, and Brian had his phone. He sets the phone down, and right next to, I guess, one of the security guard guys' iPhones, and they kind of look the same at a certain point. We take these pictures. Brian goes back up to the room. He had accidentally taken the one security guy's his phone. And then it was like, where the fuck is this phone? Shit's about to go real bad for y'all if you don't produce this phone right now. And we're like, where the fuck's his phone? So we ring up to the room of Brian, you got a phone? He's looking at it, he's like, oh yeah, this isn't even my phone. It looks like my phone. It's not my phone. They bring it down. They detained us for like 15 minutes while they did a sweep of the phone to make sure that he didn't download anything. And for about 15 minutes, we were sitting there like, how big of a shit sandwich are we about to eat right now? Yeah, no. And so luckily,
Russia this is why y'all are on a no flex zone right now. We just can't go until y'all figure it out, because y'all are not going to be scaring. Y'all ain't going to Brittany Griner me. I am not doing it.
No.
And it's become like that. Like when you go there, the last time I was there, nobody told us that like you couldn't go into Crimea because that was a Russian occupied territory. So we get there and like none of our credit cards or anything out there. So I'm like, none of my credit cards work. I can't take out money. I'm just here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it's a thing.
Y'all need to figure it out, Russia.
That's right. So be careful on your trips with Russian oligarchs in Russia. And Maiya, thanks again for the interview, for bringing this topic in. And if you guys please comments, if you have anything to say about the episode, leave us in the comments. And if you have ideas for a show or anything like that, as always, make sure to hit us up on the website, slapthepower.com, and we will see you next week.
Slap the Power is written and produced by Rick Barrio-Dill and Maiya Sykes. Associate producer, Bree Corey. Audio and visual engineering and studio facilities provided by Slap Studios LA, with distribution through our collective home for social progress in art, Slap the Network. If you have any ideas for a show you want to hear or see, or if you would like to be a guest artist on our show, please email us at info@slapthepower.com.